Welcome to How We Grow, an essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business with advice and insights from the best in the biz, with your host, Lynell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. I'm Lynell Gordon, your host, and today I'm really excited to have Stacey St. with us. She is a real estate entrepreneur who is a visionary, and she's really reshaping the short-term rental industry. She founded the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group, the Short-Term Rental Sisterhood, the Short-Term Rental Virtual Summit, which is coming up. This is a summit coming up in February. She's also the creator of the Short-Term Rental Success Accelerator. It's a training and a mentoring mastermind group for women in the short-term rental industry. And Stacey is passionate about helping women achieve financial independence and empowerment. And I love that. So thank you for being with us.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk a little bit about this summit that you do. I'm very curious and I know nothing about it. So I'm sure I've been invited, but tell me about it.
Sure. Well, this started 4 years ago. So this is our 4th annual summit. And as you mentioned, I'm very passionate about helping women in the short-term rental space. I do have a Facebook group called Female Short-Term Rental Investors, and we have about just over 60,000 women from all around the world who eat, sleep, breathe, and talk about short-term rentals each and every day. But when you're communicating through a Facebook group, there's a bit of a wall, right? And so I wanted to create an environment where we were all able to get together from the comfort of our homes and learn alongside one another, connect with industry pros, as well as network with one another and connect with other powerhouse women. And so that's what the summit is all about. It's 3 days long, February 6th through the 8th, and we're covering just about every topic you can think of, from real estate investing to operations to hospitality to marketing to entrepreneurship to design and everything in between. So it's so super fun.
Let's talk about what's new in investment. What do you see as far as 2025 and investing in real estate, either short-term rentals or let's talk short-term rentals because that's what I'm passionate about too.
Sure. Well, I think what I'm seeing is a lot of folks are continuing to see the elevated home prices and the elevated interest rates, and they're continuing to be challenged in finding good investment opportunities that pencil out. And a couple of years ago, you could find properties that, had a 20, 30, 40% cash on cash return hand over fist. And now you are like digging for a needle in a haystack to find things like that. And so I think first and foremost, the ladies that I am surrounded by are being very stringent about what they're investing in, because the last thing we want to do is have a real estate acquisition hobby. We want to be investing in assets that cash flow, right? And then secondarily, on top of additional due diligence on the financial side, I think people are really looking to, if they are self-managing, they're really looking to drive efficiency in their business, not only from a cost perspective, but from an operational perspective as well. Last but not least, I think, again, this is still a prime time to do creative deal structures, whether it is purchasing property on seller finance, investing with alternate types of funds, maybe through business partners, through a self-directed IRA, buying properties subject to an existing mortgage. So all different types of ways to buy creatively. I think that there's continuing groundswell in learning about those out-of-the-box ways to acquire real estate.
Well, I had not thought about that. That's a little epiphany moment. So I did know that the rates are higher. It's hard to find great ROI right now. Like you said, that ratio of return on investment right now is hard to find. But the creative deal structures, you talked about existing mortgage, like say you have something that is fixed. Are you talking about like a credit line?
When you purchase a property subject to the existing mortgage, you're actually dealing directly with the seller. So most of the time when you are buying properties creatively, you are dealing directly with the seller. And
Okay.
if that seller has a mortgage on the property, you buy the property subject to the existing mortgage.
What's the difference between that and assumption?
Typically in residential real estate, you cannot assume a
Right.
mortgage, although you can in commercial. So it is a real estate hack, but it's the same concept. The concept is that you take over the payments for the seller. The difference when you purchase subject to, and this is a pretty complex topic. So for anyone who's listening, I don't want you to just listen to this podcast and go, oh, okay, I'm going to go give this a whirl. I would highly recommend that you get some structured education on how to do this. But going back to the subject to deals, the original mortgage stays in the name of the seller. And as the purchaser, you are paying the mortgage payments on their behalf, and you have to structure the deal so that if for some reason you fall behind in that mortgage, the seller gets the home back. So it's a pretty complex way to purchase real estate.
We used to have rent to own. Years ago, we did rent to own kind of things.
Sure.
A lot of people did that. I don't understand the ownership. So the deed is actually in whose name?
If I were to purchase your home subject to the existing mortgage, you would deed your property over to me, but the mortgage would still be in your name. I would simply be making the payments for you.
Okay, so here's the question. That sounds like too good to be true. Let's just talk about that. Let me tell you why, because I have 2 mortgages right now that I wouldn't get rid of to save my life, and I wouldn't pay them off. They are at 3.25 and 2. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So if I decided to buy someone's existing mortgage, something subject to existing mortgage, you'd have to do that cash. Is the bank going to loan you money for that kind of acquisition?
No. So let's just play this out. Typically, if you are purchasing a property subject to, and that's what we call it, subject to, sub to. Okay. Typically, the seller is going through some sort of financial hardship or problem. Okay. So on the open market, you likely won't see deals like this. It's not something that you're going to see, chances are, for sale subject to my existing mortgage. Typically, you're, purchasing from someone who is facing foreclosure and behind in their payments. And as you probably know, and your listeners know, those financial hardships can have a tremendous effect long-term for someone and ruining their credit. And so the goal is to help that person out of their financial hardship and get them caught up on their payments. That's normally, not always, but normally how those subject to deals come about is, as a buyer, I might pull a list of folks who are behind on their mortgage payments, 60, 90, 120 days. That's one way to find people. You can pull mailing lists like that. You could also go to your local courthouse and pull a list of people that they have just filed or faced a foreclosure filing.
I subscribe to a list that gives me all that because I actually have purchased foreclosures before. I think that's a great way to do a turn a house over that way. But so lots of ways.
Yeah. And so when that occurs, let's say, as an example, you are going through a financial hardship and I say, hey, I want to purchase your home and I'm going to give you maybe a few different offers. One of the offers might be subject to that existing mortgage. And the great thing for the buyer is if you said to me, I'm $15,000 behind on my mortgage, I can acquire a home that may be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in value and only have to put down $15,000 to get you caught up and maybe some cash to help you move to another home. So it's a great way to acquire real estate, again, in very specific scenarios, but it's a great way to acquire real estate with minimal cash out of pocket.
So, Stacy, isn't there paperwork on those mortgages normally that prohibits that?
Yeah. So there are usually you'd want to get a copy of the person's existing mortgage and review it with them. Right.
Okay.
So this is certainly not for the faint of heart. It will take some due diligence.
I'm not faint of heart,
Yeah.
but I think this is phenomenally interesting. So there are mortgages out there that have paperwork that would not prohibit this. And I'm surprised.
Chances are the mortgage would prohibit. And again, you would want to create a relationship with your seller where it becomes a win-win. There's always things that you hear about mortgages getting called. If the mortgage is being paid on time, chances are, and again, I'm not a gambler, but chances are that mortgage will never be called. Now, there are some steps you need to take so that, again, you're protecting the seller in that transaction. You work with a third-party servicing company, you review the paperwork, you set up the deal so that seller is protected. But at the end of the day, when you learn how to do it, it's a tremendous way to acquire real estate and help people out of financial hardships.
That's what I'm thinking. That's huge. And I got to tell you, there is a call going out to my real estate attorney today. And I'm going to tell her, I'm like, look at this that I heard today.
If you look on a settlement statement, there's actually a line on that settlement statement.
I don't remember that. Isn't that funny? Well, and to tell you the truth, I haven't sold real estate in about 5.5 years. So there's a lot of new forms. I'm in North Carolina where we are so regulated, like crazily regulated there. So, but that's fascinating. So let's talk about what else you are going to be doing at this conference. It's not that I'm trying to promote the conference. I'm truly interested in the educational aspect that comes out for women, because the only other women conference that I know of that I go to is one that Amy puts on, which we all love Amy's. She is a precious soul and she does a really great job and we all love it. We get together. There's a lot of groups that have come out of that I'm a part of. So what kinds of things are you going to talk about?
Yeah. So every morning we'll kick off the morning with guest speakers and keynote speeches on the main stage. Now, this is a virtual stage.
I know. Yeah.
It's a really fun platform. I've used the same virtual summit platform technology for years, and it's a really cool experience for our attendees. But we'll kick off every morning with keynote speeches and panel discussions from industry professionals, again, spanning all different topics. And then we actually will go into networking. So we do what we call speed networking, where our summit software will randomly place individuals for speed networking sessions. You see a timer, and so you have to go through that conversation very efficiently, and then it will randomly place you with someone else. So it's a great way just to get to know so many other people. Then we go into what we're calling help hubs. So we have not only industry professionals that are sitting down one-on-one with people to give them individual personalized advice. We have Airbnb coming to participate in our help hubs and give people one-on-one advice on how to maximize opportunities within their listing, which I think is so huge and I'm so excited about. Then we go into afternoon workshops. We have workshops and classes spanning multiple different topics, from marketing to operations to hospitality to real estate investing. And then we wrap up the day back with the main stage activities and hot seat sessions. We get to invite someone else on stage and hear about a challenge that they're having and help them solve it together. So that's a little bit of a sneak peek as what the summit's all about.
That is really interesting. It is. I'm interested in that. That's very cool. So tell me about your short-term rental experience. Do you own short-term rentals? Do you manage them? Are they professionally managed? What do you do? Are they all Airbnb or?
All of the above.
Okay.
So I started out in the short-term rental industry. I came over from long-term rentals during COVID. So my husband and I were investing in building a long-term rental portfolio, and we were doing some flips. I have my real estate license here in Ohio. And when COVID hit, all these eviction moratoriums started popping up. We were finishing up a flip and we're preparing to utilize the profits from that flip and buy another long-term rental. And I looked at my husband and said, I have some major heartburn about this because right now, if our tenants don't pay, we're so well.
That's right. Exactly.
And so we thought, well, if we buy a short-term rental, at least someone would have to pay us in order to get in the front door. And so that's what we did. We purchased actually 2 beachfront condos in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
30 minutes from home. I love it. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
Yeah.
So little did I know at the time, I would very quickly fall in love with the short-term rental space. It became such a fun passion for me to think about the fact that even though I was a small part of someone's vacation, I was involved in helping someone make lifelong memories with their families and their loved ones. And that was very fulfilling to me. And when I started out, again, I started out with 2 properties. I was with a property manager. So they were being managed by a third-party property manager. But I had spent a long time, about 6 months, just familiarizing myself, getting myself educated. And I very quickly realized, like, whoa, my level of expectation and what is being delivered by my property manager are 2 very different things.
Yeah. And I want to say something.
Yeah.
The area that you're talking about in Myrtle Beach, I have a best friend who grew her business with nothing but Airbnb. But a half an hour down the road, they don't use Airbnb, like not a single property in some of these property managers' portfolios because it's a different market. Your market here that you're talking about is extraordinarily unique. There are similar markets all along the coastal parts of the U.S. Go for it. Let's hear what because I'm really excited to hear what you found.
Yeah, well,
Because I agree.
Yeah. So long story short, I ended up deciding to self-manage. So I had several what I would call come to Jesus meetings with my property manager. And I just decided, you know what? I should probably do this on my own. And at the time, I was working full-time in the corporate world and had an extremely busy and demanding job. And so from the get-go, I built a team around me. So initially, I brought on a co-host. We shared responsibility in managing the properties I was continuing to acquire. By the end of my first year, I had purchased and rehabbed 8 condos at the beach. And again, I live in Ohio, so we do remote rehabs, which is a fun experience. But as my portfolio started to grow, people started coming to me saying, hey, can you manage my property too? Because your calendar is full and mine isn't. And so I've really come full circle. So I actually have my property management license in South Carolina. I have a portfolio of about 40 properties in Myrtle Beach that I manage. Again, I live in Ohio, manage down there. I have a whole boots on the ground team there locally, as well as a remote team who serves as a 24/7 concierge for all of my guests. So it's been a really fun ride. I also do management here in Ohio and some other markets as well, offer co-hosting.
So I just want to remind you guys at the very beginning, when I gave an intro to Stacy, I said that she is reshaping short-term rental industry for women. She is. Look at this entrepreneurship, guys. And I just want to say that this podcast is a place for mentorship. So Stacy, if people want to reach out to you and ask about that, how would they reach you?
The best place really to find me is online. My website is staceystjohn.com, and my first name is spelled Stacey, STJOHN.com. But from there, you can basically get to anywhere you need to find me. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, all the places.
I, like you, have a desire to help. I think a lot of us in the hospitality industry, we just want to help. We want to help other people. It's a part of our DNA. It's a part of how God made us. And we are just out there doing things for people that God puts in our path.
How We Grow has partnered with Rental Guardian to bring the vacation rentals market custom protection products built for the needs of the vacation rental industry. Enjoy complete protection for both your travelers and your owners via the industry's leading travel, damage, and liability protection products. Learn more about the travel tech industry's most advanced travel and damage protection platform and API at rentalguardian.com.
I would love to hear your favorite short-term rental story for an owner or a guest.
I've two stories that stand out. One of the stories is one of my favorite things to do when I go to my properties is read my guest book.
Oh, me too. Me too.
I mean, I just sit down with a glass of wine. I'm just turning the pages. Even if I've read them before, I'm like, let's read them again, right?
I do too, especially the kids' ones. You want to look at the pictures that they drew. I know.
Exactly. But there was one in particular that someone had shared that they had brought their mother down who had just finished chemotherapy, and that this was an amazing release for her just to have something to look forward to. And it really struck a chord with me. I have goosebumps talking about it because my mother died of breast cancer. And when she was ill, we were always a family that loved to go on vacation. Those are my favorite childhood memories, is going to the beach and going to Disney World, right? And so when my mom was ill, we really intentionally planned trips to give her something to look forward to. And to see that someone else was doing that, and again, my property was just a small part of giving someone an opportunity to look forward to something after going through something so traumatic, was just, again, I can't really describe the way it makes me feel, but that's why I love it, because I feel something when I'm able to help someone. So that really strikes a chord with me. I have rekindled a relationship with someone who I had known in business years ago, more than a decade ago. And randomly, he booked one of my properties. He reached out to me after he had received my rental agreement, and he realized, like, hey, I think this is the same Stacy. Long story short, he is a real estate investor, and now I'm managing his properties.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's been a fun full circle moment as well.
I tell you, the world is really small. We don't realize that until we get older and we travel so much and we have things like that happen. And you're like, life is short.
Yeah.
The world is small. Go enjoy yourself.
Amen.
Guys, we really have to both give of ourselves, but we have to take care of ourselves too. So what do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, I do a few different things. I prioritize sleep. So a lot of people think I'm a little nutso because I go to bed at 7:00 in the evening. Now, I usually get up at 4 a.m. So I realize I'm up earlier than most, but I really do prioritize sleep because I know for my own body, I need that. Number two, I have definitely subscribed to a way of life where I am continuously focused on improving myself. So I have studied mindset quite a bit. I have studied how to train your brain for success. In fact, I just wrote a book about the very topic that's coming out in January called Live Big. Yeah. So super excited about that. But I do a lot of internal mindset work. That's the second thing I do. And number three, I love to travel. I just got back from 2 weeks in the Caribbean. And in January, we're taking our adult children and their girlfriends to Disney World. So again, I still love the beach and Disney World, but I love to travel and enjoy experiences with my friends and family. And last but not least, I do live a life of gratitude. I feel like there are two ways to look at any situation. And when we look at any situation, even when it's a negative situation, with a grateful heart, your life really changes. So that's how I take care of myself.
No, I 100% agree about the gratitude. I do. I recently started a series of less than 1 minute morning devotions. They're like really quick Bible studies that are less than a minute. And I am so grateful that God has given me the opportunity to do that. But I also keep thank you cards by my morning devotions. I think it's really important that we remember those people who do things for us. I mean, people think about it every day, someone does something, whether it's at the grocery store and the person says, "Have a nice day," and they really mean it. If you take a second and you look at that person and you say, "I appreciate that. I really do. I hope you have a nice day as well." Those kinds of things that we take for granted, that's really important, though.
It is. And speaking of the grocery store, I have someone in my local grocery store who I tell you, every time I'm in there, it doesn't matter if I'm walking through the produce section or going to check out, like she's got the biggest smile on her face and she is saying, "Hello, how are you today? Do you need help with anything?" And oftentimes when I'm in the grocery, I'm going a mile a minute. I'm thinking, okay, I got to get home and get these groceries put away so I can do the next thing. But recently I had the opportunity where I wasn't in a hurry and she happened to be standing up at the front of the grocery store. And I went up to her, number one, and thanked her for being so positive and such a light every time I visited the grocery for so many years. And then I asked to see her manager. And she was like, "Well, why?" Like, oh my gosh. And so I love doing this at restaurants too. When you have great service, ask to see their manager and let the manager know what a tremendous employee they have, because oftentimes these managers are only fielding complaints. And so when we give the opportunity for that manager to, number one, have a positive experience with a guest, it's a great thing. But also, it helps that other person shine to the people around them. So I love doing that.
I do too. And people are surprised when you do that because they're expecting it to be negative and it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I love
They do get scared.
And they do. They do. And the manager too comes up with this
Yeah.
look on their face too normally. So that is a real blessing. That's good advice. I like that too. I am excited about all of the AI coming out in 2025. I want to see how it changes our businesses. Even those who self-manage, there will be tools available to them, whether they're using property management software or not. But I'm incredibly excited about the all-in-one solutions that truly have come, I think, full circle in the last 10 years. When I was in business doing software, everybody would say to me, "Lynell, I need one software that does everything." Well, there's not one software that does everything, but there now are softwares that really do almost everything. And I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see how it affects the industry that you're in, where, most of your stuff is going through channels. So I'd be interested to come and see what you have to say about that when you have your summit. That'll be interesting because I know you'll be talking about that.
There's so many ways to utilize AI in this day and age. And candidly, I think some of them are fabulous and others still need some work. Right.
Yeah, that's true. It's totally true.
But as in the world of digital, I always say this, a digital year is like a dog year. Okay. So for every 12 months of time, it's like 7 years go by because things change so rapidly. So even though some AI tools may need some help today, maybe this time next year, they will have transformed our industry. It moves that fast.
It does move that fast. As a matter of fact, yesterday, my husband and I were talking. We have dinner together every night, and that's my time to find out what happened. And he actually called me in there because I have a lot of math in my background. And he was like, "I don't even know what these charts are. And look, I put this into Chat GPT. Look what it gave me back." He's analyzing inks for an ancient manuscript. And he was just looking to see what Chat GPT had to say about that because he just published an article a few weeks ago about how bad ChatGPT did when it comes to translating ancient Hebrew. It's not that great right now, guys, just telling you. But I said to him, I said, "Oh, I recognize these." I said, "You should go run these models outside of ChatGPT and see what it does for you." And then I wrote an article yesterday. I replied to an article that was really great in short-term rentals. It was an article that Maria, I can't remember her last name right off the top of my head. She actually wrote an article that talked about It was a marketing article, basically, to tell us how to market better. Maria Rockman, that's who it is. She does short-term rentals and all kinds of stuff, too. She, like you, is a huge advocate for women. But I replied to her, and I replied because sometimes when we're young, I think that the books that we read and the experiences we have shape us to decide what destinations we go to. Like you just said, Disney and the beach. Didn't care which one, but that's what you do when you're young. Well, I read this book called The Velvet Room, and it shaped the way that I thought about penultimate experience of reading. I'm a voracious reader. I read about a book a night just because I love to read. So when I finish what I'm doing, and I get in my bed, I pull out my Kindle and I read. And if I can read a book a night, great. That means I'm up till 2:00 in the morning. But
Hey,
whatever.
wait a minute. I just have to talk to you about this for a hot minute. Because, first of all, are you a speed reader? I need to know these things.
Not intentionally, but I've always been a speed reader. It's just when I was a kid, I don't know. I've always read very quickly.
Wow, that's amazing. And then the other thing, now I'm a morning person, right? And I've just told you I go to bed at 7 p.m., right? So I'm probably not the right person to ask this question, but if I'm reading in the evening, like I am lucky to stay awake for 10 minutes. Are you
That's
a
lovely.
night person by?
I am a night person.
Okay.
I'm a night person. I usually don't stop work until 10 or maybe 11. So I get engrossed in what I'm doing and I have to finish it. So I really love it if I don't finish a book and I can read a book over multiple days because it gives me something really to look forward to. But I read this book. It was like an abandoned Victorian home that this young girl went into, and she found this secret room, and the secret room was turreted. It was a Victorian like turret with windows, and along the window seat, there was this velvet seat that she could sit on, and she could read, and she could look out over whatever was there. I always imagined that she looked out over the ocean, and she saw this really cool view. And I went to Chat GPT yesterday, and I found this image. Well, I made this image, and I looked at it, and I was like, I cannot believe that it made this image for me. And that's really a lot of what I saw in my head. Now let's talk about the significance of that. So when I got my beach vacation home on the ocean front, it didn't at the time, but now it has floor-to-ceiling windows with an incredible open area where you can sit and watch out over the ocean and read. Why did I do that? Well, I did that because I read this book as a child, and to me, that was the ultimate in what to aspire for, to have this private area where you could sit and read and look out over the ocean. Now, think about the destinations that I've traveled to. And have I always loved Victorian architecture? I have. Do I have Victorian furniture in my home? I do. Did I go to Paris, France, so I could see that type of architecture? Because it was interesting. Did I travel there? Did I go to Versailles? Because I was like, this is what I imagine yes, I have. So we think about the stories that we have in our head and how powerful they are. So ChatGPT made that image out of my head. And so I can't imagine what the next year is going to bring you. You're right, light years. Think about when computers started. So all I'm saying for that is that I think we should keep our eyes open to new technology. And yes, there is a learning curve. If you don't believe it, ask my sister, Rochelle Hobbs, who did beta for one of these companies that's doing AI. They're incredible. But somewhere that AI has to learn. But when it starts learning, it's light years. Yeah. So we've just added a lot of that into Streamline software and some other things that we're doing for Inhabit, which is incredible. And I'm looking to see what 2025 brings for that. So I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know. And I think we as humans crave human connection as well. So I could also see a pendulum swing where people take AI too far and they lose that human touch with their guests. And so I would
100%.
say,
Because it wasn't there. It's like you said, Stacy, it wasn't there. There are tools that are out there that you can configure that do learn
Your tone of voice. Yeah.
And I'm just excited when that gets here. That's not here completely. It's not. We know that. You know that from a lot of the automated replies, because I know based on what you've told me that you've tried everything out there that's to offer on that and have probably said, not yet.
Well, it's funny. So I actually haven't utilized AI all that much in my property management because I have a 24/7 team of people. And so I'd much rather utilize my people and keep the human connection versus have reply. I mean, we're replying to our people, our guests in 2 minutes anyway with the human reply. So I haven't had the need to utilize AI for guest communications, but I do utilize AI on the back end for data analysis and analyzing markets and reviews and all that kind of fun stuff.
So, Stacy, let me ask you this. If you get to the point that you utilize AI for most guest replies, and you take that person who is in your employ, who loves people, and you put them toward either a concierge type of thing or another part of your business that you want to grow, if that happens, let me know.
Yeah,
I think, that's what I'm looking at for 2025. I'm looking for so much. And maybe I'm over expecting because I come from the software industry and the development, and I know that this technology is going to change the way that we do business. Mm-hmm. And I'm incredibly excited about it. So, Stacy, when that happens, let me know what you've done, because I know you're brilliant and you'll come up with ways to increase your revenue based on time that's saved. So interested in that.
I love it. I will absolutely keep you posted.
And I hope I see you in February. I really am looking forward to that. And I'm really happy that you agreed to come on the program. Thank you for all you do for the industry. Thank you for all that you do pro bono for women, just to help them, the consulting hours that you give away and the time that you give away and the heart that you have for this industry. And thank you for coming to share with us.
Thank you for having me.
This episode of How We Grow is brought to you by Rental Guardian. To find out more about how Rental Guardian can help grow your vacation rental business, visit rentalguardian.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.